I had to figure out how to mount that adapter for the VHF. The wiring harness on it is a little too short to do what I had originally thought. One of the ideas that I had was to go ahead and put this in this rack and mount it up underneath like that. And then I thought, well, that was going to block off the airflow to these radios too much. But after getting everything together, it would have been fine. It doesn't bind up, it doesn't touch that VHF radio at all, so it would have been just fine. But the wiring harness is too short. This cable here has to go up around into the panel and hook into the mic input on the VHF radio, and it's just a little bit too short to do that where it's sitting. So I was looking at other different ways of mounting that, and this is pretty much what I've come up with here. Is I can mount that to those diagonals right there like that. I could either mount them directly to them using a couple of clamps like I did with the radio, just put two of them on there and screw this into it, or I can make this was the original tray that was holding up the VHF radio that was screwed in underneath the instrument panel and then came back, and I had a couple of straps that went up and hooked onto the cross braces here, and this thing set on top of that. So I could use that or something like it to mount. And I'm thinking maybe I might want to put something on there and then mount this underneath this X-brace, just on the possibility that if it gets any moisture in there, that would help protect it from any moisture that would come down off of the boot cowl or come through it. I think I got it figured out how to mount that interface, that VHF interface there now. I cut a little plate. I had that plate that I had it mounted on before, but it was kind of big and already had a bunch of holes in it, but I found one that fit. This is left over from one of the false starts I had on making this radio rack. Oh, I just cut the bends off of it and then mounted that interface to it and drilled the holes out for it, countersunk them for some number 4 flathead screws, and I've got lock nuts, nylon nut lock nuts on the bottom of it. Then I got these clamps, and I'd taken these clamps and put thread zerts in them previously and powder coated them. Well, I just took a couple of those clamps and put around these tubes, and I marked and drilled holes for number 6 screws and flathead screws. I countersunk those from the bottom because they fit right in where that interface fits up on. So they go in there, and that makes a pretty good mount right there, and it makes this jack close enough to the front, pointed the right direction, where I've got plenty of room for the mic pigtail, and then all the other cables fit. This is the one for the speaker output out of the VHF radio, and there's just enough room for it. And then this goes to the microphone switches, so it can operate the microphone from the aircraft microphone. So that looks like it's going to fit up real good. Well, I'm going to trim that up a little bit, round over the edges, pretty that up a little bit. We'll peel the plastic off of it, clean it up, and powder coat it when we do the radio racks. This is the Hobbs meter here. I just went ahead and just dry fit it in, stuck it in the instrument panel there, so I made sure I have enough clearance between it and the interface, and everything looks going to look good there. I think that's a good mount. I got the interface mounted in there. It's all set up. I don't think I'm going to move it. I think it's pretty good. I just got a plate of 032 aluminum 2024, and that was a scrap piece, or one of the pieces I made into scrap when I made the other mounting trays for the radios. I cut it out to fit. Had a couple of these clamps clamped on there. I had those powder coated already with nut zerts in them, and for number 6 I countersunk for a number 6 screw, flathead screw, screwed those in there, and then we've got flathead number 4 screws and fiber lock nuts, nylock nuts holding that on. You know, it might have been a little better to have it on top of this brace than underneath it. In case it come loose, underneath it's liable to fall off, but it's tightened on there pretty good. It shouldn't fall off. And I wanted it just underneath so that this plate, I've got it overhanging the interface there on all sides, and I rolled a little bead around the edges of it there. It kind of helps stiffen it up, and also that'll keep any moisture that might come down off that instrument panel underneath that windshield. If there's any leaks or anything, that'll kind of block it, and moisture will hit this and roll off the edges instead of going right into the interface. So that's the thought process there anyway. So it's all powder coated shiny black. It's up here where I've got plenty of room on my leads here to hook into the radios. I'm going to have to punch a hole in the instrument panel to feed this lead through there. That's going to be kind of funky. Don't like that, but it is what it is. That all looks pretty good. I'm happy with that.